It looks like a beautiful day, but I can tell you it's cold. Really, really cold. It's frosty. But we have work to do. What work is there to do, I hear you ask? Well, there's quite a lot. Firstly, all the suspension, all the arms, the uprights, the shocks, the steering rack, that all has to come off. Then there's the subframe, which quite frankly is scabbier than a pig's anus. This has to come out and be cleaned and properly welded. Then there's this ghastly mess that used to be my bulkhead and is now full of holes. This needs welding up. We need to make templates, cut out steel and weld it and seam seal it and clean it and paint it and make sure that we don't intrude on where the engine's going. I've got some reference pictures, so hopefully that will go okay. And to make life that little bit more interesting, it's cold, it's windy, and I forgot to spray WD-40 on the bolts last night, so they haven't had a chance to soak and they are crusty. So we've got rust to deal with as well. First things first, car's jacked up and it's now sat on axle stands, not on the subframe though. The gearbox is currently held in its correct position by this block of wood resting on the subframe, but seeing as we're about to pull the subframe off, we need to jack this guy up and set him on some wood. The subframe's going to be a heavy old lump when we undo the bolts and we pull him out, so to help with the weight we're going to take off absolutely everything that we can. All of this. And as a hint, not all of it is going back on. Hintity hint hint. And that. If, like me, you've forgotten to spray WD-40 or similar on your bolts and they are rusty and are probably not going to want to come off, here's a quick tip. ATF and acetone, automatic transmission fluid and acetone. You have to give it a really good shake because it does like to separate, and then spray it on. This works better and quicker than WD-40 or similar. However, don't breathe this stuff in. Don't get close. If you're anything like me, this will really aggravate you. So wear a mask or spray in a ventilated area, I guess, like this. Sure. Once you've taken the split pin out and then taken the nut off and you've been able to free the top arm from the upright, you don't want the upright flopping around and damaging the bottom ball joint or the little rubber cap that goes over it. So prop him up with some bits of wood or cable tie him to the shock just to take the weight while you take the bottom nut off. A ball joint splitter, like this guy, should make fairly short work of separating the upright from the ball joints on the arms. However, this one will not budge. Not even hitting it with this guy. It's a right pain in the arse. The camber adjustment bolts will not come out. They are seized absolutely solid. I cannot get any movement at all from them. Things we've tried to remove the bolts, this hammer, this little hammer, this much bigger hammer. Pro tip, if you're going to smack the end of the bolt, put a knot on it first so you don't mash up your thread, especially if you're planning to reuse the bolt. These, I think, might be beyond reusing. I've soaked them in my automatic transmission fluid and acetone, and for good measure I added some WD-40 because, well, why not? I applied quite a lot of heat and that did nothing. I put my big breaker bar on it and I've had all my weight on it, and actually the car is threatening to come off its axle stands before the nut comes loose. And our 540 foot-pound of torque rattle gun, and that has done nothing. And now, to add insult to injury, it's raining, and it looks like it's going to rain for quite a while. Well, I got the nut off. A huge amount of heat and a massive breaker bar, and I was able to get, well, at least one of the nuts off. However, I've celebrated a bit too soon, because I've got a socket across. This is very awkward to film, but I've got a socket on top of the back camber adjuster, and as I move it, you can see that metal tube, and you can hear it. The metal tube is no longer bonded to the rubber, and therefore the lower arm, and the bolt is stuck in the metal tube, so no matter how much we turn or we smack it, it will not come out. So now I'm not sure what we do. If I move the camera down, you can see I've had the jack on it. I've actually jacked it up just on the bolt to try and force it out, and it will not move. It is stuck in there, and the other side is exactly the same. So I don't really know how we get him out. Well, now that does look like success, and so does this. However, the arms are still attached. When I started work on the subframe at 9:30 this morning, it's now 4 o'clock, I was quite excited to get the frame out, get all the suspension off and start cleaning it up, getting it painted, doing all my welding and such like. However, these lower arms have been an absolute pain in the arse. However, me and the lower arms have gone to war, and the loser, apart from my patience, is the lower arms. Now, it's fair to say we're not reusing these. Now, the bushes are absolutely shagged, so we couldn't reuse this anyway. To be honest, it's absolutely knackered, and there is a recall on the earlier RX8s because this ball joint, which holds in the lower part of the upright, separates and comes adrift, and then your wheel flops around, so that's not ideal. So that's scrap. One side done, without a couple of little scuff marks, but without any damage to the subframe, so that's great. So we've got one down, and we've got one to go. Well, that has to have been one of the hardest days we've had on the car so far. Both arms are off. I haven't got nearly as much work done today as I thought I might. 9 hours pretty much just taking suspension off, but it's done now. Loads of cleaning up to do. You can see all the brackets that we no longer need. This is for original engine mount, so is that. Tidying up to do where we've done some of the welding. Loads and loads and loads to do, but it's getting really cold now. It's getting late. The neighbours don't want to listen to me grinding on the subframe all night, so that is it for today. So we'll pick this up tomorrow and we'll see how far we get.